to an Andromedan consciousness, an extraterrestrial consciousness. And this came to me abruptly and fluently in my recovery period after an experience with breast cancer. And I went through some quite a long sessions of meditation. Before I was a channel, I worked as a therapist, and before that, a meditation and yoga teacher. And I'd always taught meditation, and meditation had been quite a foundational core part of my life. And I'd always come to that in times of real distress and need. And I definitely came back to meditation when I was thinking about how to make a U-turn on my biochemistry when I realized I had cancer. And I knew that I had to perform my own kind of alchemy, if you like. I had to just not only heal my body, but change my mindset. So I went deep into meditation. And from this kind of, I guess, deep need of asking, this is when I started to channel. And their name is Tarp. They came through me, within a space of weeks, to a point where I was able to talk and utter words. So I go into a trance, a conscious trance. I'm not asleep. I'm just stepping back out of my, I'd say, surface consciousness, and I can hear everything going on. But they kind of take over my body, and my voice changes a little bit. People who know me know that there's a certain abruptness to them and a certain way of phrasing things that isn't my usual way of communication. They're very clear that they've come here to help at this time, and especially for those that are sensitive individuals, empaths on their own healing journey, or are healers, and they're here to help those people augment, be in touch with their abilities more, and to feel the confidence so they can in turn help others. And they are here especially also to help young people, children and young people, for they're a kind of different breed of human being coming through, and they just need a little bit of tweaking and activation, because maybe not all of them are awake, or some are waking up, some are still growing up. So I offer, I do sort of group readings with audiences, a Q&A kind of style, which is what I'm going to give you a sample of today. And I do hands-on events, literally where in trance, Tarp put their hands on people to aid in energy transfer and any activations or unblocking that needs to happen. And then I teach courses are online at the moment, awakening to channel, awakening to ascension and channeling, basically. So that's what I do. I'll come back at the end. I'm going to go into trance now. And I know there isn't a great group of you, but if you feel like you want to ask questions, you can unmute yourself and just ask Tarp directly. They can answer anything on, love, relationships, life, business, bigger picture questions, direction, life's purpose kind of thing. And I usually say when we're in groups, rather than sort of make all the questions really personal about you, try to make them sort of more general for the sake of the audience, unless you've got something really important that you need to find out. They're not good at predictions on things like numbers, or else I'd be playing the lottery. I've tried that. It's not predictable. And if you can refrain from asking any questions, important questions about your health, that takes the pressure off me. So feel free, apart from that, to ask away, and don't be afraid to ask anything about current affairs or current conditions in the world. I'm going to go into trance. It will take me a couple of minutes maybe, and then you'll hear from Tarp, and then I'll come back 5 minutes before the end. Okay, everyone okay with that? And I think most of you got your mics on mute. I think that because I'm in trance, if you do want to ask a question but don't want to speak up, I think it might be okay if you type it in the chat box. And I don't know if Siobhan will be at hand. Maybe she might Yeah,
that's
be there to assist if someone doesn't want to read the question out themselves, or if not, just go for it and unmute yourself and ask the question, and then kindly put yourself back on mute. And at the end, I'll put more details about me and what I do. Okay. See you after. Good morning, we are Tarp. We are here to assist you and answer any questions you may have. How can we help you? Do not be shy.
Welcome, Tarp. Can I ask about the pandemic and whether you see things improving for the world?
Yes, we can speak about this. Will there be any improvements for the world? Would you like to be more specific?
Improvements in terms of compassion for others and improvements in terms of health for people.
One moment, please. We are explaining often that the pandemic is a rehearsed facade for other transactions which are taking place currently. The truth is, there will be a few more bumps in the road. However, the general plan is going to go the way of general positivity for your species. You are in an ascension process, and what you have going on are clusters of energy which are holding on to old ways of being. There have been systems put on your place and operating over your planet, over the consciousness of your species for a very, very long time. In truth, the main matrix of this grid that has been placed over you has, for the most part, been dismantled. There are, however, small clusters of energy which are holding on to the old systems and the old ways of being for purposes of their own intent by the people running them. The story isn't recent and the story isn't so simple. It is a complex story. However, what you need to understand is, while the general consciousness of the planet makes leaps and bounds in its ascension currently, and over the next few years, there will be attempts to try to tighten the wheels and tighten the system that has controlled the masses for so long. What you are seeing here is a flexing of muscle, so to speak, which is an act of fear on the part of those that have been controlling in the past. The fear is that they may be losing their grip, and this is why they are playing a hand which will seem like, for some, very fearful time to be, time to fear about your health, time to fear about your freedoms, time to fear about your own personal trajectory in your life. However, we ask you, and we do say this is very important, that you do not subscribe to the fear. Yes, there are systems in place, and yes, you are still bound to those systems to a degree, but this is just your, let's say, your primate mind, your imprinting that will recognize these patterns. There is a whole other part of you that has already ascended and is already living in a much higher dimensional frequency, not just you as an individual, but you as a species. This, of course, has been perceived already, and this is why there is a tightening, shall we say, of the wheels and a flexing of muscle right now. Continue with the belief in your own abilities and understanding that actually there is a vastly bigger picture than what you understand being played out on the surface of your planet, and the frequencies and vicissitudes related to that 3D consciousness, including all of your media outlets and governmental and institutional systems that govern the resources on your planet. There is a much bigger picture. You as a human being may feel like you're in a third density time-space situation, and we agree it is a very convincing one, but we will also point out to you that you came for this reason, and you did choose to be and experience in this physical body. You are God. You are creator in this physical body. You have come for the expansion and to knock against opposites and pairs of things and polarity, which you do not choose, so that you know what to move and ascend from. For this is the natural order of the universe, which is an upward ascension process. Everything is in evolution and everything is an upward process. There is a long timeline, excuse our pun, for we do not use timelines. This is something that you will recognize, of repetition in your species and on your planet, and of course other planets too, where there is an evolution of your species and then a collapse, an evolution of your species and then a collapse. At the point of evolution and collapse, there is an ascension. The ascension, however, does not have to be what you may imagine to be a brutal, very fearful event. The ascension takes place in your consciousness, and we ask you, therefore, to become used to your consciousness field. How to become used to your conscious field is to learn how to meditate, learn how to start to feel your reality beyond your 5 senses. When you are starting to learn and feel your reality beyond your 5 senses, you are then not plugged into the matrix with your senses. You are free to feel your energy field outside of the matrix laid on this planet. Once you start to dip your toe into this wider sense of consciousness, you begin to develop your sovereignty and your intuition and your own abilities to channel your own higher selves and your own guides and other beings of light, such as us. We and many others have come here at this time to make contact with you, to assist you in this process, to steer you on these stepping stones through the myriad of confusion and chaos and information and misinformation that surrounds you right now. For a while, other clusters of energy flex their muscles to try to keep you dumbed down. You do have a lot of support around you. Many of you are able to connect with beings such as ourselves at this time. Many are, and there are many children also doing it, which find it natural, for they have not had their confidence in their abilities outside their five senses drummed out of them yet. It does not make it impossible for those older people and adults, such as the channel, to do it. It just takes an understanding that the communication comes via your imagination and your higher mind. Your higher self acts as a conduit towards you and anything else that would like to communicate with you. We suggest you always ask for beings of light. This, however, could also mean ascended masters or beings from the angelic realm, not to mention your own personal guides and your own personal angels. Gayle, the channel, also communicates with her own higher self. She has a regular dialogue in meditation, sometimes before we come in. Gayle's higher self is a conduit between her physical body and us. The consciousness field is like an information highway. It is kind of like your internet. Once you know how to plug into it, you are free to communicate with any being that you may wish. We do not need mobile phones. This is outdated technology. We will tell you that you do not need it either. You always knew this. You have just forgotten, and you have become rather attached to your five senses, which you believe you need devices to communicate. We are asking you to step out of more and more your physical realm, to spend some time from time to time when you feel like it, tuning in and trying to feel and just becoming comfortable in your new, more expanded house, which is the energy field around you. We feel we may have answered your question about the pandemic. However, we do realize we went on to a number of tangents. We hope this is helpful.
Yes, thank you, Tark.
Thank you.
I've got another question.
Yes.
Please, can you help us understand how we can actually protect our planet more?
You can protect your planet by frequenting the consciousness field around you. For as soon as you do, you develop your own power. You are less liable to succumb to the rules and dictates of things that do not serve you. Once you are in your power, there will be a morphic field generated on this planet with a community which is gaining in strength and power. Right now, in this little gathering, we have our own little morphic field, for we are all, relatively speaking, shall we say, like-minded. There is an energetic power which is produced from such a community of minds and energy, and that would in turn have an impact on anyone else who would choose to come into your rooms right now and join in. This is the same thing as what is happening on your planet. There are morphic fields of energy, and there is, shall we say, what you may consider more negative and more positive. The power on your earth and the power to choose things that are more beneficial for the planet and for yourself as a species comes from learning your own power first. Understanding that you are God means that you become creator of your reality. This may sound vague, but this is actually the recipe or the way forward into your ascension. It really is about stepping outside of your five senses. For once you do that, you have a big power. You have a big promotional power for also your way of consciousness, which will in turn impact and affect those other people around you, which is very important at this time. There are approximately 8 billion people on this planet, and you are all fractalizations of God. You are all God. streamlined into different points of view, but you are all at all times part of and connected into the hub of God. There are, so to speak, 8 billion spokes plugged into the wheel of the hub of all that is. Imagine the more power of all of these spokes plugged into the hub waking up. It is just a matter of time for, as Gayle likes to talk about, the 100th monkey effect. When a certain percentage or proportion of people have adopted a new way of thinking and being, it becomes a tipping point where the trend of consciousness literally waves over the whole species and creates a bigger scale change. Does that make sense? You are very near this point right now.
Yes, thank you.
You are spokes in the hub. You are God. You are forgiven for forgetting, for we understand, and you knew this before you came, that coming into 3D was a big trick. It is a big, big drama. For as soon as you come down into this density, things are heavy. They are dense. They are solid. Everything around you is very convincing. And this is what you chose, but you are not part of this. This is, in fact, a very giant stage, which you have chosen to come down in, knowing that you will get stuck in the sticky glue, but you would be coming forth so you could try to learn how to ascend out of it for your own ascension purposes, which is the plan of evolution, which is the plan of God experiencing himself from different points of view. Does it make sense?
Yes, thank you, Tarp.
Any other questions? Any other questions?
Hi, someone has asked if there are any others like Gayle.
Yes, lots, and still coming through. The children, this will be a fairly normal thing for them. There are plenty of incarnations happening now, which are other star beings, such as Gayle and many people. She is not an isolated incident. There are many people like her who have not yet discovered their abilities to communicate. You see, you as individuals on this planet are connected with many other individuals and fractalizations currently. There is no past or future, there is just present. And you belong, you have a higher self and a soul, and you belong to a soul family. Within that soul family, it's a small group, if you like. There are many fractalizations, versions of you on different planets, in different dimensions and different species, so on and so forth, even in different versions of your time, although not necessarily all at once. It depends on what is chosen, what you are choosing on a soul family level. So on a soul family level, there is a version of the energy specifically beamed and transmitted into Gayle that is also Andromedan, hence our particular affiliation with this vehicle here. This is the case for many other beings of you, and what you may or may not realize is many of your beings in power already have that affiliation with certain species, hence different types of human being. There are ones with what you may call more negative leanings, which you would say are to blame or to be You could point them towards the systems of control on your planet, so to speak. And then there are the ones which are leaning towards the other polarity, which is to help people ascend and become free. There are many different versions of energy being projected into many different human beings. There are also, shall we say, other species masking as human beings on the planet right now. Gayle is not one. She's just an incarnate that is able to connect right now with Andromedan consciousness. Does it make sense?
Thank you, Gayle. There's 4 minutes left, okay?
We shall say goodbye. It has been our pleasure to communicate with you, and we hope we can do it again. Any questions, do not be frightened. Remember your autonomy and remember your wider consciousness field. Unplugging the senses from the matrix, you will feel more. Thank you. We offer you our gratitude and our unconditional love. Thank you. Goodbye. So when I come out, I'm a little bit spaced out and a little bit like, it's like a dream. That was all a dream to me. So it will fade. I remember pretty much right now everything that was said. But that's Tarp. Quite different to me. So if you want to know more information about Tarp, what I could do is maybe write my website in here. If you want to write to me, you can email me on that. I do private question and answer sessions for people who have, more personal matters or, they want time to themselves. And I do the hands-on events and I teach the Awakening to Ascension and Channeling course. And I think we got a couple more minutes if anyone has any questions for me, Gayle. Thank you for being quiet, by the way, during my session.
If anyone does have any questions for Gayle, feel free to unmute yourself or pop them in the chat.
Hi, Gayle.
Hi, Craig.
Hi.
Lovely music.
Thank you. That was very interesting. Does this happen on a regular basis? Should we say like a download of sporadically, or is it a time when you have created a relationship that you can do this in? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, it's kind of on call, so they won't just come into me when I'm shopping, for example. That's a funny thought. No, literally, I just now it's a very kind of immediate thing. I just close my eyes, I know to step out of the way, and they kind of connect, and I'm relaxed, and they come in. So me personally, I probably channel them every day, not necessarily speaking out loud. Sometimes I have conversations with myself at the end of my meditation, in which case my head just moves, but I know what the answers are. It's just like I'm speaking in a tunnel and they're speaking back. It's very clear. So it's kind of like telepathy, but yeah, sort of. And I do it for my girls. I've got 2 teenage girls that constantly have questions for Tarp, as sometimes they're trivial about school that day, or sometimes they're sort of bigger things that have just occurred to them. But they don't walk in and walk all over me.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing. I'll certainly check your site out and be in touch.
Thanks so much. Thanks for the question.
Thank you so much for that session, Gayle. That was amazing. The next person up is Manu, so we're going to get ready for him. But Gayle, thank you so much.
It's wonderful to take part in the IPHM festival.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Everyone.